Welcome to Screen Crush, I'm Ryan Airy, and I'm here to tell you why Thanos was right. Not about how to feed the universe, that was dumb. I'm going to explain why Thanos was actually a victim of Kang's multiversal war and why everything he did was to prevent the arrival of Kang. But first we have our Screen Crush trivia question. We all know Josh Brolin played Thanos in the MCU, but was he the original actor in the Avengers post-credit scene? And if not, who was? You can find our answer at the end of the video at this timecode. Now in the comics, Thanos has a pretty one-dimensional goal. He loves death too much and wants to win her heart by killing half the universe. Thanos equals bad, right? But then in Infinity War, screenwriters Marcus and McFeely worked to give him a bit more depth and nuance. Marvel wanted their big bad to be somebody you could understand, a little more like Loki and a less like whatever Malekith was supposed to be. So Thanos was reimagined as a kind of cosmic eco-terrorist, a genocidal madman with a heart of gold.
The children born have known nothing but full bellies and clear skies. It's a paradise.
And he makes this argument all through the movie, desperately trying to convince anyone who will listen.
Titan was like most planets. Too many mouths, not enough to go around. This universe is finite, its resources finite. If life is left unchecked, life will cease to exist.
Aw, guys, my pudding's not so bad. He didn't mean to wipe out half my planet. Now I got all the sandwiches I can eat.
Thanos never persuaded a hero, but he sure convinced a lot of audience members. Immediately, YouTube videos and memes and think pieces sprouted up saying Thanos was right. The logic behind this was that on Earth, humans are decreasing biodiversity and consuming more than our share of resources. And wouldn't it be nice if the lines were way shorter at Walmart? But when you hold this idea up to any kind of scrutiny, you see that it makes no sense at all. Now, I'm going to explain this and then tell you why this was not Thanos' actual plan. He had a secret plan. So in Endgame, we do get proof from Steve that there is increased biodiversity after the snap.
You know, I saw a pod of whales when I was coming over the bridge.
And you might remember hearing similar stories about the pandemic. Wild animals roaming the streets of cities, and the hole in the ozone layer suddenly repairing itself. Which is all nice. Except Natasha said this.
Thanos wiped out 50% of all living creatures.
Which probably included all animals and plants, which doesn't really do much to limit the effects of human beings on the environment. It just halves the amount of food that everyone can eat. But let's say that he spared the plants and we can all still eat our crops. The main argument seems to be, gee, overpopulation is the main problem. After all, the number of humans on the planet has risen almost exponentially since the Industrial Revolution began. And as Falcon and the Winter Soldier showed us, a world with more space in it did allow for open borders and a higher quality of life for the common people.
Yeah, essentially these people, they want a world that's unified without borders. So you can see why a lot of people are into that.
But as Lyman Stone told Vice, our problem is not overpopulation, it's overconsumption. Water is a renewable resource, but we don't have the energy to desalinate it from the ocean. So on Earth, our main problem is overconsumption of energy, which can be corrected with renewable energy resources. And more importantly, the effect of snapping away half of humanity is extremely temporary. The blog Arachnoid points out that at a 1% annual growth in population, which is basically what our growth is right now, the effect of Thanos' snap would be reversed in just 69 years. So why was Thanos so intent on this plan? If a blogger with a working knowledge of HTML coding can knock this one out, then why couldn't Thanos? Why would he spend generations mowing down civilizations, scouting the stars for the ultimate power in the universe? Why would he stick with such a flawed point of view? After all, in another timeline, T'Challa was able to reason with him.
I'm a big enough man to admit when I'm wrong.
Well, there is the idea that it's because he suffered trauma. When Titan was starving to death, he proposed a solution.
Genocide.
But random, dispassionate, fair to rich and poor alike.
Thanos watched his planet die, and now he's fixated on that loss. He couldn't implement this plan on Titan, so he'll implement it on the entire universe. He's like Doc Ock in Spider-Man 2. He only failed because he didn't go big enough the first time.
We could rebuild. Enlarge the containment field. Make it bigger and stronger than ever.
But I mean, come on. All that bloodshed because he needed therapy? I'm not buying it. I think that Titan was actually devastated by the multiversal war that we learn about in Loki, and that Thanos' plan was an elaborate way to prune the timeline. The smoking gun here was the Miss Minutes propaganda video explaining the history of the TVA.
There was a vast multiversal war,
Countless unique timelines battled each other for supremacy.
See that right there? That is one of the ships or floating buildings from Titan. This is a multiversal war being fought on Titan. I know you're going to say that Miss Minutes is an unreliable narrator, and you're right. She did lie and was full of hoodoo about a lot, but she was not lying about the multiversal war.
The peace between realities erupted into all-out war.
Now, it's possible that these are just ships that happen to look exactly like Titan's technology, but come on, Marvel would have designed something new. Nothing in the MCU is an accident. So, Thanos is actually a veteran of this war, where his Titan fought other versions of Titan under the leadership of Kang the Conqueror, and I'll lay out proof of that in a minute. But first, if a multiversal war destroyed Titan and Thanos is trying to prevent an invasion from other dimensions, then why wouldn't he just say so? Why this story about keeping people fed? 3 reasons. 1, the plan to cut the population to save resources is dumb and insane, like I said. And if you want people to be afraid of you, make them think you're dumb and insane, that you're crazy and you'll do anything to get attention. Like Will Smith said in this episode of Fresh Prince.
The next step is full-scale psychological warfare, right? You gotta act like you got this tick, right? Like the army did this experiment on you, right? That just went terribly wrong.
Reason number 2, if your goal is to feed the entire universe, then you might actually be able to recruit people to your side. But number 3, and most importantly, if you know about the multiverse, then you cannot go around telling people about the multiverse. Someone is going to get curious, explore other dimensions, cause branches in the timeline, and start the multiversal war all over again. So Thanos kept his cards close to his big purple bumpy chest. So thinking about the Marvel Multiversal War got me really excited, and I wanted to watch other movies for research, like Deadpool or the Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. But they're not on Disney Plus or Netflix. And man, I am so tired of paying for so many streaming services and none of them ever having the exact movie that I want to watch. But it does turn out that Netflix streams just about every movie you can think of in other countries. There's even a website that shows you how to find the other countries where your movie is streaming. Like here, I found out that Deadpool was streaming in Germany. So I booked a one-way flight and watched Deadpool at my hotel in Hamburg. But just in case you don't have that kind of money, you should get NordVPN, the sponsor of this video. NordVPN has more than 5,400 servers in 59 countries, so it's very easy to change your IP address's location to Germany, and voila, Deadpool. This also gives you access to Star on Disney Plus, which features mature content like Family Guy, Atlanta, Alien, and more. So using NordVPN gives you access to hundreds of streaming sites all over the world. It's like adding free streaming services on top of the ones that you're already paying for. You can also use NordVPN on multiple devices, like your desktop phone, or like how I use it on my Apple TV. So we have a couple of different deals for you. If you go to nordvpn.com/screencrush or click the link in the description, until October 26, you get a huge discount on a 2-year plan and 4 additional months for free. After October 26, you still get the discount, but with only 1 free month. So go to nordvpn.com/screencrush to get your deal today. Now, back to Thanos. But I'm not just some guy shouting out theories into the void. I come bearing gifts of proof. For instance, Titan. It is jacked up. Not just the wreckage. There are windstorms, gravity's out of place, rocks floating everywhere. What, starvation caused this? In the middle of the 19th century, the potato famine devastated Ireland, killing 1 million people, but it didn't make rocks float. Objects don't just defy gravity out of nowhere. Gravity is created by a large mass taking up space in the 4th dimension, creating a fold in space-time. Like the 4th dimension is a bed sheet, and gravity is the dip that objects create in the sheet. In theory, if Titan was maybe mined into oblivion, then its mass and gravity would decrease, but then the gravity would be universally affected. On Titan, there's just these weird pockets where gravity is lighter. No one is hopping around like they're on the moon. So whatever destroyed Titan literally broke 4th dimensional space. And do you know what else breaks 4th dimensional space?
Time travel!
And time travel, as we've seen, leads to splits in the timeline and the multiverse. So here's what I'm proposing. Titan was ground zero in the multiversal war. It was a planet that had several counterparts in other universes, and these other Titans were also technologically advanced. So, as the multiverses collided, these versions of Titan collided. Imagine Thanos fighting an army of himself. And as the lines between realities blurred, the fabric of space-time began to split apart. Then, every infinite version of Titan suddenly occupied the same space at the same time, creating this devastation. And it was this crack in space-time that also created Alioth, which He Who Remains used to end this war.
A creature created from all the tears in reality.
I weaponized Alioth, and I ended the multiversal war.
But I have more proof that Thanos knew about the multiverse. Avengers Endgame. Nebula malfunctions and her drive becomes entangled with the other Nebula from the future. But Thanos never acts surprised by any of this. He immediately grasps the concept of time travel and multiversal selves.
Where is this other nebula?
And even when he sees himself being beheaded, there's no reaction. That's because this ain't the first time he's seen a version of himself get his head cut off.
I hate to shatter your ego, but this ain't the first time I've had a gun pointed at me.
And you know what else? I think he might have created a warning system just in case variants ever arrived in his timeline. He created this warning system and placed it inside of someone who was close to him, Nebula. So he wasn't surprised by Nebula's reveal or that there were Avengers from another universe. He was waiting for this to happen. So Thanos didn't want the stones to solve universal hunger. He wanted them to do a massive prune of the timeline. Now, he's not the TVA. He can't see every aspect of reality at once, so I don't think he knew exactly what would cause the multiversal war. He didn't know about the TVA or He Who Remains. He just knows that the universe, unchecked, created monsters that started a multiversal war. So let's say that you have a tree with one rotten branch that will poison the entire tree, but there's no way for you to know which branch it is. What do? You can't cut off all the branches, so you cut off half of them and hope you got the right one. And Thanos thinks that the snap succeeds initially because no variants show up to stop him. And I know immediately some of you are thinking, if Thanos prevented the multiversal war, then wouldn't that have fixed Titan? And the answer is no. Remember the rules of time travel.
Time doesn't work that way. Changing the past doesn't change the future.
Now, what this would have done from Thanos' point of view was prevented the multiverse war from happening again because he cannot change his own past. I also think that when he snapped, he prevented He Who Remained, or Kang, from existing. One of the characters he snapped was the ancestor of He Who Remains, maybe T'Challa. They both seem to use the same Wakandan exposition tech. In fact, in that what-if reality, T'Challa maybe helped Thanos determine exactly who was the ancestor of He Who Remains, and then they... I also think that the moment Thanos snapped, he briefly gained cosmic awareness. In the comics, this is when a character levels up so far that they perceive reality on a higher cosmic level. We actually see Ultron and Strange Supreme do this in What If.
I see you.
After he gains cosmic awareness and is in Soul World, Thanos understands, on some level, that his mission was a success. The timeline has been pruned. And he destroyed the stones because removing them from the multiverse places reality at risk.
In this new branch reality, without our chief weapon against the forces of darkness, our world would be overrun.
So by crushing them, he keeps their energy in the universe because energy cannot be created or destroyed, but no one from another reality can take them away and endanger the proper flow of time. So now, enter the TVA. If Thanos snapped He Who Remains from existing, then there should be no TVA, right? Wrong, because Thanos still exists as a third-dimensional being, experiencing time in a third-dimensional linear way, whereas He Who Remains occupies the end of time and has a fourth-dimensional awareness. Instead of seeing time as a sphere, he sees it as a flat circle, all happening at once. He sees that Thanos, in one timeline, has prevented his existence. But if He Who Remains doesn't exist, then Kang is allowed to run rampant throughout the other timelines. Enter this line.
What they did was supposed to happen.
Everything the heroes did in Endgame was set into motion by He Who Remains and the TVA. You want proof? Scott Lang. He's the one who set everything into motion. He's in the quantum realm for 5 years, but it feels like 5 hours.
Time works differently in the quantum realm.
Which is very similar to this.
You know, time passes differently here in the TVA.
And remember, Janet aged at a normal rate in the quantum realm. So why did time work different for Scott? Because the TVA shaped the time around him so he wouldn't age, and would return with the idea that time travel was possible. The TVA did all this to undo Thanos' snap and create the proper branches in the sacred timeline. But back to Thanos. Look at how different he was in Infinity War and Endgame. In Infinity War, he's almost apologetic.
I understand, my child. I know what it's like to lose. You have my respect, Stark.
He kills Gamora, and it's heartbreaking. I've theorized in the past that Thanos became a little softer after Gamora left.
I'd hope you'd sit in it one day.
Then in Endgame, he's nasty, because he knows how dangerous the Avengers are. They are recklessly creating timelines, removing Infinity Stones, leaving realities unprotected from Kang. They are being reckless. So he decides to prevent them from doing any of this and start the whole thing from scratch.
I will shred this universe down to its last atom.
Now, what I'm saying is that Thanos wasn't the MCU's greatest villain. He was their greatest hero. The man dedicated his life to saving the multiverse from extinction and was punished for it. The ultimate martyr, like the god that he tried so hard to become. And now the answer to our Screen Crush trivia question. The original Thanos was actually stuntman Damien Poitier. And as you can see, it's practical makeup, not CGI, and it looks really, really good. Let me know if you think this looks better than CGI Thanos down in the comments. Now, he didn't have all the information. He was limited by his place and time in the universe, but he did his best, and we should celebrate him for that. Thanks, Thanos. But that's just what I think. Let me know your theories and comments on this down in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe and smash that bell. For Screen Crush, I'm Ryan Airy.